link, you will then get, you will be requesting access to join the Facebook group if you're not already in it, okay? So, so what I'll now do is move on to, where shall we go next? Yes, I know. So that's the Facebook group, and you'll see that there are lots of things happening in the Facebook group. We welcome new people and we ask a little bit about you. We post in people's questions, we post people's success stories, and other people post those success stories as well. So it's a great place to go. Let me just close that down. Okay, so the next thing that I am going to show you or share with you is I'm going to have a look at these questions that are coming in. I don't need that, so I'll close that. So the first question I got was from Chris. Chris said, I ask my clients to pay in 10 installments, not 12. Is it possible to change this in cloud pricing, as I can't seem to see how at the moment? Yes, indeed it is, Chris. So what I'm going to do is, hopefully on the screen now, you should see me logging into our test site. So I'm going to open up the software. Remember how to log in. There we go. My software will probably look a lot different to yours because I've got various bits and pieces in here for showing people how to do stuff. It's a test site. So basically it will look a little bit different to this, but I will get to a general overview in a second because I know that there are a couple of ways to other people who've asked for a sort of a general outline of what the software does. So Chris, to answer your question, in order to change the monthly installments number, i.e. the number of months that the payments are taken over, you would go into the global settings area. So you click on the cogwheel, which is the third little pink button underneath your name in that turquoise bar at the top. You click on that cogwheel there, and that takes you to this global settings page. And then you would click on the templates button, okay? That will take you through to a page where your templates, whatever template you have imported, it will take you to this place here. Now, at the side of the template that you're asking about, whatever is in your account, you would click on the edit button for that template. So I'm going to open up my bookkeeping template. And across the top, underneath the name of the name of the template, you'll see a series of tabs. If you click on the Expressing Price tab, it will open up this page here. And as you scroll down the page, there is a section here that's called Pricing of Packages. And these are where you set the parameters for your particular service. So you can put your limits for the entry level. So the entry, you would have 3 separate packages, perhaps called entry, full and premium, and you might want to limit a limit for your entry level. So the software calculates the entry level price first, and then all the other prices for the full and the premium, or whatever you've called your packages, are relative to that entry level price. But if you don't want to, if you have like a minimum fee, if there's a number that you don't want to go below, then this is where you stick it here in the minimum box. And there's also a maximum number if you don't want to go over a specific amount of money for a fee as well. But I would never limit yourself maximum wise. Why would you want to limit what prices you could get? So in this section, Chris, that's highlight over on the right hand side, you can see there's a section that says period spread over, and currently the numbers in each of those boxes are 12s. So if you want to spread your payments over 10 months, you change that 12 to a 10. So all of the changes that you need to make are made within the template itself. So you don't go into the customer facing aspect, which is the bit down the left hand side over here. You go into the back end, into the templates, and you change those number 12s to 10s. So hopefully that has answered your question. Okay, so David Peters says, I'm working with the software, it already has a base rate. Where would I change this? Okay, so each of the templates, when you log in and you go to the questions, in the bookkeeping one, if you ignore the very first question, is your bookkeeping up to date? Because when I click on the edit button for that, it opens it up, and you can see that if the customer says yes, it's a 0 value. And if the customer says no, it's a 0 value. All that question is therefore is to make you aware that, you know, if their bookkeeping isn't up to date, you're going to need to do some catch-up work or some clean-up work, and you won't be able to start the ongoing monthly bookkeeping work until you've dealt with that. So that question, if you just ignore that for now. The second question down is probably the base rate question. And this is similar in all of the different templates that we have for the different services. So this is for bookkeeping. There's a different question in the annual financial statements template, and that would be something like, what's your annual turnover? And this question starts the calculation process. It's this question that you would need to change the base rate. So if you click on the edit button at the side of that question, how many sales invoices per month do you raise? What you're asking the customer is you're going to ask them that question, and you want that question, the response for that question, to be a value, a number. So the very first question that you ask must be a value type. So you can see here I've highlighted on the screen value type, and you'll see that there is a drop down box that says value. So that must be the type of question that you ask first. It can't be a multiplier, it can't be a percentage increase, because the software doesn't have a number at the moment to multiply against or add a percentage to, because that initial question that we spoke about, is your bookkeeping up to date, that's only a 0, that's a 0 value. So, you know, there's no percentage there, you can't really multiply anything. So this question has to be a value. And you'll see down here, we're going to give the customer a range of options, 1 to 10, 11 to 30, 31 to 70, and so on. And each of those has a value against them. Now, at the moment, you cannot edit this list in this particular area. However, you will be pleased to know, those people who are currently using the software, that we are asking the developers to put an edit button here somewhere on that little area, so that you can edit those numbers without leaving the template. However, at the moment, we have to leave the template in order to edit those numbers. So I'm going to make a note of the name of the list. So you can see here in this drop down box, it says bookkeeping, number of sales invoices, value. Ignore the FEB at the end, that's just the month that I created the list in. So bookkeeping, number of sales invoices, value. And then we go back into the global settings button. So click on that little cogwheel again in the top right corner. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look in the list manager section. And when the section comes up, we were looking for bookkeeping. So it was, where were we looking? I wonder if it's in the imported one. Yeah. Bookkeeping, here we go. Bookkeeping, number of sales invoices, value, and it's got that little FEB that I said you didn't need. And to the right of that is an options button with a little white drop down arrow. If you click on the drop down arrow, you can now edit that list, you can clone it, and you can delete it, because that particular list, you can see I've got a number of lists that are the same list, they've got exactly the same name, but that list is not connected to a template, so it's got a delete button. I can delete it if I want. If the list is connected to a template, that red delete button won't be there, because you won't be allowed to delete something that's connected to a template that's in use. So you need to click on the edit button, and that opens up the template. You can now change all of these numbers. You can change the ranges. So if you didn't want it to be 1 to 10, instead, if you wanted it to be 1 to 50, you can now change all of these just by changing the numbers and overtyping them. And you can change the base numbers on the right-hand side of the screen. So David, that's where you'll change those base numbers. If it's a drop-down list. If it's a question where you just want to change the number because it's a multiplier or something, then you just go into that dialog box in the template and you change everything in there. Every single question you can edit, every single question you can click on the edit button, you can open the question up, and you can physically change most of the questions there and then in the template. But anything that's got a drop down list, you need to make a note of the name of the list, and then you need to come into the list manager and find the appropriate list and edit the list. And then that will automatically, when you click save, it will automatically update all the values in the list that's attached to your template. So hopefully that's answered that question. So Elizabeth, you're looking for a general overview. Trude, I think you're looking for a general overview as well, so I will go into that in a minute. Gabriella, you said you're interested in cloud pricing. You've reviewed the basic info on the website. What's the monthly price for each module? How does it work? So if I give you a general overview as well, that will go into more detail there. Sharon, you said, please go through the process of going from a template to making a module. 2 options, starting from one of the resources from Mark's mentoring sessions and the making one from scratch. Okay. Fair enough, we'll do that. Let me go back into the template. So we'll click on the templates section. Now, for anybody who is part of Mark's mentoring program, you will gain access to the templates through his mentoring program, through the courses that you are given. He will give you the mentoring templates. There are some basic templates available, and if you do want access to them, just email me and I can tell you where to go. And if we do have time, I will show you where you can get the basic templates from. You just need to register for the video training. But for those of you who gain access through the mentoring program, excuse me, you would import the template. Now you want to make a module. I'm going to assume you want to know how to connect everything to a module, Sharon, not make a module. Okay. So if I click on the so if we want to create one from scratch, sorry, let's create one from scratch. So a template, the difference between a template and a module. A template is this thing here on the screen that sits behind the scenes, that contains the questions that you will ask your customer, and it has the numbers that are attached to each of the answers to those questions in the back end. The customer will never see this template. So when we look at the bookkeeping template, if I open that one up, when we look at this bookkeeping template, you will see how the questions are laid out in this particular way. They're in different sections, but they're laid out in such a manner that you've got the question on the left, and then you've got all the things you can do to it on the right. You can edit it, you can delete it, or you can move it around. So the little square box with the 3 black lines in it at the end of the line, that's what we call our drag and drop functionality, and you just grab hold of that box and you drag the question to wherever in the list you want it to go. The formula for the questions is the calculation is done in the order that the questions are created, or the order of the questions. So the first question starts the process, then the second question adds to it, the third question adds to it, the fourth question adds, fifth question adds, sixth question adds, and so on and so on and so on, until you get right down to the very bottom of the questions. Once you've asked all the questions, the software adds everything up in the background and comes up with an annual figure, which is then divided by the number in that period spread over box that we showed Chris earlier, for the number of months that you want to take the payments over. So for bookkeeping, it might be 12 payments of. So you will get an annual figure, the software will divide it by 12, and you will show the customer the monthly payments. Okay, so that's importing the template. It will automatically import all of this information. However, Sharon, if you want to create a template from scratch, you can do that. You go into the templates area, and in the top right corner of the screen, you can see that there is a Create New button. And what you would do is you would just basically do all of those questions and create them yourself, which you can do that. That's not a problem. However, I recommend that you kind of don't put yourself through that trouble, because there is already a template that we've created for most of the services: bookkeeping, personal tax, forecasting, annual financial statements, that kind of thing. there is a template, and it's probably better to import it and then edit it rather than to think of all the questions yourself. However, if you wanted to create a template that was for, let's say, payroll, you would type the name of the template that you're going to create, click on the green create button, and then you remember when I showed you the template that was already there, you've got all these tabs here, but you've got nothing here in the actual body of the template. And now what you have to do is start creating it from scratch yourself. So you'll create a section that might be called About Your Business. Now we've created our section. You can add a question to that section, and the question might very well be, is your bookkeeping up to date? That is a yes or no question. So you've got different options to choose from. You can say yes or no. You can have a drop down list as the answer to your question. If it's one of those, how many sales invoices, and you want to give them a range, or you can ask for a value. So one of the questions you might ask might be, how many bank accounts have you got? And you'll want them to give you a number. But this one is a yes or no question. The next one down, as we've already said, this is our first question. It has to be a value question because you can't start the calculation process with any of the other items in that list. The yes value in that process was 0, and the no value was also 0, but you might want to put different numbers in there. So if the bookkeeping is up to date, you might say, okay, we'll start with 0. But if the bookkeeping is not up to date, you might want to put something like £500 or $500 in that box, because you know you're going to have to do some cleanup work to start with and get everything to the point where you can do the monthly ongoing bookkeeping work. Sorry, I kind of just picked, although I've said payroll, I'm kind of talking about bookkeeping. I just automatically go into bookkeeping role. So you would add a question to the section. So I've just closed that down, so I've lost the question. Is your bookkeeping up to date? Yes or no? It's a value question, and we're going to have no, and we're going to have 500 in there. We're going to have those. So that's how you start the first question, and we click save. And there's your first question. You've started to build your template. And all you do to build your own template is keep adding the different questions. So I think in the payroll one, it might be something like, let's do this kind of question. How many employees do you have? Now, you would want a value from the customer there. Now, this is a great question because you can also use, we're going to use what we call a unit price question for this one. Now, a unit price question is a bit advanced. So I'm going to come back to the general overview in a second, but it's a bit advanced. And we don't normally cover unit price and specific unit price, but for this question we will. How many employees do you have? It's a value question because the customer is going to give you a number. They're going to say we've got 10 employees, but we've given it a unit price question because we're going to ask another question in a moment that will work in conjunction with this question. And you can do multiple questions in that way as well. But this doesn't do anything to the quote at this point in time. So we'll save that question, how many employees do you have? And the customer will answer it, but the software kind of parks the information. It sticks the answer in its head somewhere and just comes back to it later. So the next question we might add is, do you want us to send digital pay slips to your employees? And that might be a yes or no question again. Yes, we do, no, we don't. But this time we're going to choose specific unit price. And for a yes value, we might want to charge, I don't know, we might want to charge £5 or $5 for every pay slip. If we don't want them to send digital pay slips, it might be £6 or $6 or something like that. So you can choose the numbers behind the scenes yourself. Now, right at the very bottom, you'll see it says select unit price. Now, this question will not work unless you choose the how many employees do you have question. And then what you've done is you've connected those two questions together so that the software says, okay, if the customer wants me to send digital pay slips to the employees, I need to know how many employees there are. there are 10 employees. So let's say the customer said they had 10 employees. So it says, okay, 10 times by 5 is 50. So it adds 50 to the price at that point in time. Okay. So the other great thing about this unit price question, this how many employees do you have, is you can now add another question that says, do you want us to maintain your holiday records for each employee? And that could be a yes, no question as well. And again, we can do a specific unit price. And if the answer is yes, we can charge them, I don't know, £100 or $100 for doing it, and $0 for not doing it if they say no, because they don't want it. But again, we need to connect this question to the how many employees, because it's going to multiply the yes answer by the number of employees. We're going to charge them for doing this. So can you see now your template is starting to build? Sharon, I hope this is what you wanted to see. But eventually, one of the, and you'll go through the template in its entirety, you'll create as many questions as you need to. You'll go into the expressing price, and you will create your minimum and maximum levels for the entry level. You remember I said if you didn't want to go below or under a certain fee. You've got some writing here. Your small monthly investment is just, and that will appear in front of the 12 payments of. You can describe your packages. So you can do light level, entry level, you can do full level and premium level. You can do anything you like there. You can do gold, silver, bronze. You can do, you know, be creative with the names of your packages. I know that one customer of ours had a gardening, he worked with gardening clients, and he had something like seeds, sapling, oak, or something like that, you know, for his packages, because he worked with gardening contractors and gardening companies, and he thought that that was a great way to grab their attention by using language that they were familiar with for the names of his packages. So here in the adjustment type, we would do relative for most of these. And as I say, it calculates the entry level first. So we need a number 1 in the entry level section. If we're pricing everything relative to the entry level, that means if we put 0.75 and we've chosen relative, it will be 0.75 times less than the entry level, 1.3 times higher, and 1.5 times higher for the premium level. If you want your your light level, your very, very basic level to be a fixed amount of, let's say, £299 or $299, you do fixed and $299. And if you want your premium level to be $2,000 higher than your entry level every single time, you would choose absolute and 2,000. And what that will do is it will calculate your entry level, and then it will add $2,000 on for the premium level. If you're interested in price psychology and you want to put your put rounding amounts in, you can choose to add rounding amounts to these boxes, 9s or 7s or 5s. And that basically, if you switch them on, means that when the software calculates a price, let's say 12 payments of £245 or $245, it will then come here, it will look at your parameters, and it will say, okay, you want me to round the price to the nearest 9 or the nearest 7. So if the entry level is 12 payments of $245, it will then look for the nearest 9 and change it to 12 payments of $249. And then the period spread over are the number of months that you want the payments to be spread over. You can choose down here to show your packages. We recommend that you show the entry level, the full level, and the premium level, and perhaps have an option to reveal your light level. You would never show your light level because your light level is your most basic level. And if the customer is arguing over the price, do you really want to work with them and show them that? But you've got it up your sleeve if you need to. So option to reveal puts a little button on the page that you can click on to open that package up if you're desperate to work with the client. We always recommend that you work in full dollars or full pounds. Don't bother with the pennies and the cents. So hide decimal places should be switched on. And if you have to add sales tax to your service, you can show whether or not you show that text. So here you can add for the UK, you could put plus VAT, or if you're in the US or Canada, you can do plus sales tax, and that will show on the screen. So it will be 12 payments of whatever the amount is plus whatever sales tax text you've put. We won't go into the default payment profile. Oh, and if you want to choose how much sales tax, here in the UK, the VAT rate is 20%. So we would say 20%, and it will add 20% on at the end of the quote. I won't go into the default payment profile because that's something that's a bit more complicated. The components table is where you create the things that you will do for your particular service. So if it's bookkeeping, this is where your 3 packages start to build, and basically you would brainstorm everything that you do for your particular package, for your particular service. If it's bookkeeping, do you do reconciliation of bank accounts? Do you input transactions? Do you do debtor monitoring? Do you do reconciliation of credit card transactions? So it's all the different things that you would do for your particular service. To create those, you just click on the create component, you type in bank reconciliations, you make a decision as to whether or not it's included or excluded from any of the packages, and you choose from the drop down list what it's included in and what it's excluded from. And now you can see we've got bank reconciliations, and that appears in all of your main packages, but you don't do it for the light level. Once you've built all these up, there's a blue pencil icon. You can click on that and edit every single one of them. And that's if you choose to import a template. So you can edit all these when you import a template. You can delete, and there's that drag and drop facility as well. And when you finish creating the components, you just click on Save Components, and it will save everything that you've done. The rewards are your behavior rewards. We do tend to recommend that you don't offer discounts. Instead, what you would do is you would get the customer to do something for you that makes your life easier. So, for example, if you want to gain new customers, but you don't want to do any marketing, one of the questions here could be, will you refer us to 3 other businesses just like yours? And you would set the question up in such a manner that it gives you, the customer, a discount, a 5% decrease in price, for example. And then the setup, that rewards, the rewards are set up in exactly the same way as the questions, and so are the options. The options are your upsells. Once the customer has chosen a package, you can then choose to upsell various other items which are added to the price. So that's how you create your packages there. And then once you've created, that's how you create your template. Once you then have created your template, you want to attach it to a module over here in the left-hand menu bar. The modules are what you open up in front of the client. They are customer facing. So the customer will see all the information that you've put in the template in a different way. They'll see the questions, but they won't see the numbers, but they will see them in a prettier way, if you like. So if I now click on Global Settings button, and we're now looking in the global settings for something called Module Manager, okay? And the Module Manager, in here, you can see I've got 4 modules. I've got 3 test modules and a bookkeeping module, which has DND at the end. The reason I've put DND there is because I do not want to delete that module. It's attached to my monthly subscription. And if I delete it, it is incredibly difficult to get it back and connect it to that monthly subscription. So you don't want to delete that module ever. So yours would say, when you get in there, yours will say my first module. It won't say bookkeeping, it will say my first module. There won't be anything in the software when you get into it. You have to create your template of questions and settings first. This will say, so what it will do is it will say my first module. That's what it will say there. That's what it will say in the left-hand menu bar. And what you're going to do is you're going to change the name of the module to what I had before, which is bookkeeping DND. And then from the templates, you would then choose the template that you want to connect to that module. And it's likely to be the template that is called the same name as the module. Okay, so I will leave my bookkeeping ones connected so that I can show you that. You can choose an icon from any of these listed. There are a huge amount of them. And then once you've chosen your icon, you just click on the save button and it will save, and your module over here in the left hand menu bar will change names, and you'll see that it says bookkeeping. And now you remember how the template looked when we were looking at the questions. Now you've got all your questions. Is your bookkeeping up to date? How many sales invoices a month do you raise? What type of business are you? But they're in a much nicer format for the customer to look at. And what you would now do is click on a test. I would always have a test client, but click on the test button or create your new client, call them test, and then you would just answer the questions. And every single box needs to be answered. Every question needs to be answered. You can see we had how many active bank accounts, how many other bank accounts, how many credit card accounts, how many PayPal accounts. All sorts of different questions were there. We're not going to do bill pay, so we don't need any people adding to bill.com. Do you want us to account for your divisions? No, we'll turn that one off because they've only got one division anyway, and we're going to do the bookkeeping for the division. But I will change how often do you want us to do your bookkeeping. So this is like a shopping basket, okay? If you look at this like a shopping basket, you are with your client and your client is shopping. And when you ask them the questions, the top questions, these about your business questions, are about the scope of the work, the size of the job that you are going to undertake for them. So how many transactions, how many invoices, how many bank accounts. You want to know how big that book is, that job is going to be. The questions at the bottom, the other things you might want, they're what we call preference questions. And those are things that the customer might like to have, but they don't really necessarily value having them. And so what you're going to do is you're going to give the customer the choice of putting everything in the basket. I want that, I want that, I want that. Yes, I do want that. I want you to do my bookkeeping weekly. Yes, I want you to scan the records. I want you to work at my offices. I want you to come and deliver and collect the paperwork. And I want to have a monthly review meeting about my bookkeeping work because I am really passionate about my bookkeeping. Okay, so essentially you want to think of this as the customer's shopping basket. They're just putting everything in. And then you click on the Your Fixed Price button at the bottom, and that is essentially your calculate button. When you click on the Your Fixed Price button, you are telling the software to add up all the items in the background. It's now come up with 3 different prices. I had already, originally in my bookkeeping module, I'd called my packages bronze, silver and gold. The most expensive package is always at the left because we read from left to right. So you want your customer to see the most expensive package first. And if the customer says, right, it's 12 payments of £641, because mine's UK, yours might say dollars if you're in the US or Canada. They might say that's a little bit too expensive, but I really like the look of the package. Is there anything you can do to change the price? And at this point, a lot of people want to discount. Don't discount straight away. Click on the Your Preferences button, which is up here, and you go back to the questions. And what you're now going to do is it's like going through the supermarket and putting things in your basket because they're on special offer, and then getting to the checkout and finding you don't have enough money to pay for what you've got in your basket. So now we're going to find out what the customer values. And therefore, are there things that we can take out of the basket because he's not bothered about them? So we asked the customer, how often do you want us to do your bookkeeping? And he said weekly. He got very excited about doing weekly bookkeeping. Now, it may be that every other customer you do monthly bookkeeping for, and you might want to say to the customer, we find that most of our clients have their bookkeeping done on a monthly basis. It's the right amount of time to spend doing the bookkeeping. And would you like to see what would the price be if we change you from weekly bookkeeping to monthly bookkeeping? And of course, if you find that after we start doing your bookkeeping on a monthly basis, it's not often enough, we can revisit this at a later date and we can change to weekly, and the price will change appropriately. And the customer might say, yeah, I guess that would be great. Let's have a look and see. So I don't want to cause you any extra work. Let's have a look and see how much it would cost. And you now realize that they don't value weekly bookkeeping. They're happy with monthly bookkeeping. So we can take that out of the basket and exchange it for something else. We've exchanged that one particular thing, and we click on the calculate button to recalculate the price. And now we've got 12 payments of 575. So it's gone down from 641 to 575. So what you've done is, by the customer throwing everything in the basket, you've come up with a price that's really, really expensive, and that's your job, to come up with a really expensive price. You want to find the optimum price, and then you work with the customer to get them to tell you what they value, what's important to them, and you take those items that aren't valuable out of the basket to reduce the price, and the price will start to come down. You'll go back again and we will, do you want us to collect and deliver your paperwork? They might say, do you know what? I pass by your office every week, so it's not really necessary for you to make a special journey to come and collect the paperwork and deliver it. I can just pop it in when I'm passing. So if you might turn that question off, that they don't value that because they can do it themselves. So you would turn that up to no, and you would recalculate again. And we've now gone from 545 to 537. And what you would do is you would continue to do this until the customer says, that's a perfect price, I'm happy with that, let's go with it. If the customer still, if you exhaust all of the changing of the questions and you can't change any more, that's when you can then open up your options section, your behavior rewards, and you can say, well, what we could do is, if you're prepared to offer us referrals to 3 businesses just like yourself who might benefit from working with us, that means we don't have to do any unnecessary marketing, and therefore we can offer you a discount. Would you like to do that? And if the customer says yes, it will change the price. So now we've gone down from 537, you can see down here, 537 to 512. So that's another way of discounting as well, by getting them to do something that is making your life easier. And that essentially is the template. I kind of almost did a general overview there for you as well. So I talked you through how the software works, how you create a template. You can create from scratch, or you can import one of ours. That's a much easier way of doing it. And then I've shown you exactly how to do a quote. So hopefully Elizabeth and Trudy and Gabriella, that has kind of shown you how it works. Sharon, it's hopefully showed you how the process of creating a template and putting it into a module has worked. So I've covered those questions. Gabriella, you asked how much does it cost? So the software itself is £29. I don't know where you're based, so forgive me, I'll give you out all the prices. £29 plus VAT for if you're in the UK, and it's $39 a month. It's £29 plus VAT, or $39 a month in the US. That's for access to one module. So when you get into the software, in the left-hand menu bar over here, you will see clients, and you will see the first module, which will be called My First Module. It will not be called Bookkeeping, it will be called My First Module. And you will not see these other 3 modules. There is nothing else there. So you get access to that one module to price one service. If you then decide that you want to price a second service, such as payroll, you would need to purchase an additional module and then import another template, and then attach your newly imported template to that newly purchased module. Additional modules are priced at £3.99 plus VAT per module per month, or $3.99 per module per month. So it's not the same as the monthly subscription, it's a much lower amount for additional modules. So hopefully that's that one. Okay, David says, is there this is David Colts. Hi there, David, nice to see you. Is there a way to reset templates back to how it was when it was originally purchased? Is there a way to reset templates back to how it was when it was originally purchased? No, there isn't. in short, David. If you make lots and lots of different changes to your module, then no, you can't go back to whatever it was unless you've made a note of what was in the module to start off with. So if I just go back to the templates, I'll show you a really quick thing that if you did want to go back to what was there originally. So if I go into the template, you can't actually hit a button that says, take this template back to what it was before I started messing about with it, okay? You can't do that. But when you get a template, if for any reason you feel that some way down the line, you're not going to be happy with the changes that you've made, the first thing I would do is when you import your template, up here in the top right hand corner, there's what we call an internal report button. And what that internal report button does is when you click on it, it opens up a separate tab in your browser and it shows you everything that is in your template at that point in time. So it shows you all the questions and the answer type and the value type and what's associated, the numbers that are associated with those questions, whether there's a default answer, does it default to no, does it default to yes, and what the lists are that are connected to the drop-down list answers. And then as you scroll down, you'll see that it says list templates. So you'll see all of those lists with those values in that we had a look at earlier. All of the lists are there. Then in the expressing price tab, where you set those parameters, you give your packages names, you price them relative to each other, you perhaps put rounding on, you put the period spread over, that's here. And then you've got your rewards and your options questions. So that's the only way that you would be able to work out what was in your template before you made any changes. And you would need to click on that internal report button as soon as you import the template and copy that, save it as a PDF somewhere so that you could refer back to it and change it back to what it was in the future if you didn't like the changes that you made. That's the only way that you can go back to the template. Of course, what you could do is you can import the template again, but in order to do that, you would need to purchase an additional module in order to get the template in there. So, David, you said, can you share how to set up questions that are dependent on answers from other questions? So, David, did you arrive and did you see me setting up those unit price and specific unit price questions? Those are questions that are set up and depend on the answers to others. So, do you want us to send digital pay slips to your employees is dependent on the number of employees that you've got. So, that's that question which we did earlier. I'm hoping that that answered your question, David. Chris, you said perfect, that's great, thank you. Glad to have helped. Amy, you said, is this software something we have access to in Mark's Thursday group or is this an add-on? So Amy, you're in Mark's Thursday mentoring group. It's an additional add-on, it's a separate subscription, it's not included within the mentoring, the price of the mentoring, okay? It is a separate subscription because it's a separate company, so we don't mix the two companies. So you would need to purchase it separately. Mark, you said, hi Sarah, what about mid-year sign-up? Sometimes I do either 1, truncate the first year's fee within the remaining months, or 2, I charge differently year 1 depending on the sign-up month and then would start January as normal. Can the program do that, or pro rata? It can, yes. But I'm not very good at this because I'm not a bookkeeper or an accountant. I can kind of talk you through how you build all this and how you get it up and running, and I can fix problems. So forgive me if I get this wrong. Now, in here, and I'm not going to go through this because what I would prefer to do, I'm not going to go through it in detail. What I would prefer to do is do this in a completely separate session because we're already kind of an hour, we're 50 minutes through, and there are loads of questions. So I would prefer to spend an entire session talking about this, and it's kind of an advanced one as well. So Mark might come online and he might do the proposal build a bit. So the way that you can do mid-year things is by using Proposal Builder. So what you can do is Proposal Builder is an additional add-on piece of software that's currently in beta mode. It's with some people who are testing it out. They are giving us feedback, and that Proposal Builder will also integrate with QBO, Intuit QuickBooks, and that's also being beta tested at the moment. And once all the beta testing is finished and the QBO integration works and everything's fine, we'll then look to integrate with other cloud accounting solutions such as Xero and maybe Sage and so on. But essentially what you can do is you can do it two ways. So if I go into my bookkeeping template and I do a quote, is your bookkeeping up to date? This would be in your annual financial statements template, because I think it's annual accounts, isn't it, that it applies to more or less. So with bookkeeping, if you did bookkeeping and the bookkeeping wasn't up to date and they said, no, our bookkeeping isn't up to date, then you would need to do a separate quote for cleanup. And I will answer a question that I said I was asked twice today when I did my one-to-one calls about why you have different modules for different services, different things. So down here you would have bookkeeping, you might have another one for personal tax, you might have another one for annual financial statements. And the two people I had one-to-one calls with this morning, they said, why would you have different modules? Why would you not just incorporate everything into one module? And there are a number of reasons why you wouldn't do that. And I'll come back to that in a second so that I can just show you how to do this. So we're going to go through and we're going to put numbers in there. We said no, didn't we? So we want 0. And we're going to go to your fixed price. And let's say that the customer is happy with the silver package of 12 payments of £445. And so they select that package. Now, when they select that package, another button up here appears, and you can see there's the full level that they've got, the silver level, 12 payments of £445 plus sales tax. So now you've got that plus sales tax coming into being. And we now have another button up here called Customize, and Customize is the upsells. So you can now add things on for an additional amount of money. So that's where you can do that. But you'll also see that there is what we call a payment plan box. Okay. Now what it's done is it's kind of rounded it up, and I think there's a bug in my bookkeeping template, which is why it's rounded it from 445 to 446 plus sales tax. So that bug has been fixed in everybody else's, so it doesn't do that, but it's not been fixed in mine. So what you would do here is you can now include additional payments, upfront payments or additional upfront payments. So let's say, for example, that you did a quote, and this quote for annual accounts was potentially starting in January, and you've got the rest of this year's accounts to do. So where are we? We're at August, let's say 4 months. And let's say that you wanted to charge them £200 or $200 per month to do the remaining ones this year. What you can now do is include an additional upfront payment of a fixed amount of, let's say, $800, because we said $800, £200 or $200 per month. So now what you've got is you've got an additional upfront payment, which will cover the stuff that you've got to do mid-year, and then the installment payments, the 12 payments of 446 plus sales tax, will start in January. So you can do that there. You can also do this in Proposal Builder. So what I'll do is I'll switch that off. I will do save and complete. And then what happens is we get a list of all the questions and how they've been answered, and we get the price at the bottom there. And up here in the top, there's a green button that says create proposal. So now what we're doing is we're flipping from cloud pricing to Proposal Builder. Now over here in the left-hand corner, you'll see earlier on throughout most of this demonstration, it said Proposal Builder here in this box, but actually it now says cloud pricing. So we've now flipped into Proposal Builder. Proposal Builder is a way of creating proposals to pull the information through from Cloud Pricing, and it's, as I said, it's in beta mode, so it's not fully functioning yet. It has got some bugs in it. What we now can do is we can now start to fill out these boxes. So our client is called Test. We can assign it to a team member. So if you've got multiple people using the software and you've got lots of different people's names there, you can assign certain things to certain people. So you could say, do you know what, Fred's going to be in charge of this particular proposal, so I'm going to assign this to Fred, and Fred's name might be in that drop-down list. We're going to select a proposal template. So before you use Proposal Builder, you'll have to create a template, a standard fixed price agreement template to pull your information through. That will have paragraphs in it that refer to the package they've chosen and your terms and conditions, and you know, the way that you operate, what you expect from your customer and what your customer can expect from you. All things like that that would appear in the FPA. You can give your proposal a name, so we can call it bookkeeping because we did a bookkeeping quote. You can click on the estimated start date for the project, and you can also click on the estimated end date, and you can change those. If you choose it's an existing client, then you'll know that whether you'll be able to follow through how profitable that particular client is. And then it says, is this recurring work? And if you say yes to that, it's recurring work, then what will happen is at the end of the year, when you need to go out and visit the client again to do a new quote, because you should always reprice your services every single year, you should put your prices up. If you do that, you'll get a notification, or Fred will get a notification that says, okay, this particular client, you need to go and revisit him because his contract is coming towards an end, so you need to go and talk to him about doing this again. Okay, and then down here you can actually see that the quote that we did in Cloud Pricing has been pulled through. It was Cloud Pricing quote 93. And if I click on this white box here, it now opens up some further information. And here you go, you've got exactly the same information in here. You can do additional payments to be made in advance. The first installment where the amount is non-regular, so if you want to charge them $500, which is obviously different to the £445 or dollars that was the package price, you can charge that. The first regular installment, you've got a date, you can change the amount, and you can do other installments as well. So that is how you would change and factor in starting a project mid-term, like an annual accounts project. So Mark, I'm hoping that has kind of helped you there. As I said, I didn't want to spend too much time on this because that is in beta mode. If you want to use it, you are more than welcome to use Proposal Builder. It's based on the number of clients that you pull through. So if you do a quote for somebody and then go into Cloud Pricing, that's one client. So it's and it's based on 0 to 10 is free, and then after that there are different pricing ranges. So I think there's 11 to 20, 21 to 40, and each one has a different price attached to it. I can't tell you offhand what the prices are, but they are in the software. So you can use Proposal Builder if you wish, but please do remember that it's in beta mode and there will be bugs in there that do need fixing at the moment. We hope that it will be properly live and out of beta mode towards the end of October, but no promises. Okay, Orin says, is there a US specific based template? Yes, Orin, there are for certain services. So for example, we have a US bookkeeping template, we have a US management reporting template. The best thing to do is, if you want the US version, is to email and ask me for it. If we have it, I will send it. If we don't, you'll have to stick with the UK version for now. We are always open to people taking a UK template and turning it into US, Canadian wording or whatever. And if you're willing to do that and share with us, that would be wonderful. We will get to it eventually because Mark works with a number of people on his mentoring program, so he, you know, he has that understanding and that knowledge now of what is available to do with regard to the templates, so we can create them ourselves. But if you're willing to do that and share with us, that would be wonderful. Thank you. So Evie says, how do you determine your base price and multipliers for different factors? I'm interested in knowing the logic rather than just how to use different pieces of the software. Okay, so there's no sort of set way to determine your base prices and your multipliers. It's based on gut feel, Eva. So all the numbers that are currently in the templates behind the scenes are just numbers that Mark has put in there to start the process, if you like, so that when you import something, you can go and have a look and see what is available. You can change all of the numbers in the background to suit whatever it is that you want to have in there. So all the numbers are based on what you want to go in there. Change them to suit your requirements. There's not kind of a lot of logic behind them. It's just random numbers that were put into the templates so that you could get started straight away, and you can just amend those, because only you know what prices you want to come out in front of the customer, and every single one of you that uses the software will have different ideas on what those numbers should be. So as I said, it was just to put numbers into the software so that you could get started, so that you could do something with the software. The numbers behind the scenes are entirely what you want them to be. And, you know, the numbers, when you actually put them in the background, so for example, in our template, one of the questions is how many active bank accounts do you have? And the customer's going to give you a number, and in the value for that, we've put in there 300. Now that can be £300 or $300, and what that's telling you is that for every bank account that the customer has, you're going to charge them £300 or dollars. Now, if you feel that that's too expensive, then change that number and put it down to $50 or pounds, or $100 or pounds, or, you know, if you feel that that's too low, put 1,000 in there. But it's entirely up to you as to what those numbers are. Okay. So Rochelle, good morning, Sarah. Is there a way to add a section of questions to a module? For example, the cleanup module doesn't necessarily ask all the questions I need. It assumed that there was some type of order by the potential client as opposed to just straight paper documents. Can this section be added with multiple questions? I'm not really 100% sure what you mean by that. Is there a way to add a section of questions to a module? No, you cannot add things to a module. You can add things to a template, okay? Template is what sits in the background with the questions and the settings, and you can add whatever you want to the template. You cannot physically add stuff to the module because the module is client facing, and you do not want your customer to see you adding things to the module. So if you want to go into the template, so again, I don't have the cleanup one, Rochelle, so I can't show you the cleanup one, but I do obviously have the bookkeeping one. If you want to add some questions, then what you would do, and you want to put them into a separate section all of their own, you would click on the create a section button, and you would call it additional items, or whatever you want to call it. You would give it a name and you would save. And then now what you do is, if you scroll down to the bottom, you've now added another section to your template, okay? Then you can start to add questions to this new section, like I showed you earlier when we were creating a template from scratch. You can now click on add question to the section and start typing your questions, okay? And then when you've done all the things that you need to do, when you click into your module, when you've added all your questions and you click into your module, that particular section will already have been added. So now you can see I created that new section, didn't I, at the bottom? I didn't create any questions, but I could have. That has now added itself to the bottom of your template, of your module. So you've now got another series of questions to ask, okay? You don't What you want to do is you want to create your template of questions and settings, and then you want to leave it alone. Don't keep changing the template, because every time you change the template, the quotes that you've done in the past won't have that information on. The changes only apply to quotes going forward. So you just need to be careful about changing the template, okay? So hopefully that has answered your question, Rochelle. If it's not, please just type it in again and give me a little bit more information. So David, I'm not so sure how to pronounce it, David, but David Fine, is it? You may already be planning to do this, but would you kindly walk through an example of a pricing meeting and what that would look like from start to finish? David, have I done that? Did I, when I showed you how to do the quote, how to go backwards and forwards and change the questions so that the price drops, how to then choose a package and get to the end? Did I do that? Excellent, great stuff. David again says, do you need to edit all the pricing and questions, or is there a setup already in the system that I can use to get started? So you can import, as I've said before, you can import one of our pre-built templates. This particular template, this is the module that's got the template connected to it, but the template in the background, that was one I pre-built. We've pre-built and I imported it into my account. So all I do is use it to show you guys how the software works. I haven't changed any of the numbers behind the scenes, and you don't need to change anything behind the scenes if you don't want to. Our recommendation is obviously, please do go and have a look at the questions, because it may be that we've missed something that if we send you a US template, it may be that we've missed changing the words VAT to sales tax. So do please go and have a look through the template, familiarize yourself with it, make sure you understand what's in it and that it makes sense to you, and you're not going to sit in front of a client and the client say, what's VAT? You know, you don't want that to happen. But you can use it immediately. If you import a template for a specific service, you can use that as it is. A lot of people do. I was asked that question this morning. Do people use the template with the questions and settings as they are, or do people amend it to suit themselves? Bit of both. It kind of depends whether you want to leave it as it is, have a play with it, see what comes out, and you're happy with the prices, you don't need to change the numbers, or you can go into it, have a play with it, do some quotes and think, do you know what, I really need to edit those numbers because they're a little bit too high or they're a little bit too low, and you'll go and make it your own template. So it's entirely up to you. You can use it, but you do have to import the template. There's nothing in there to start off with. You do have to import the template in order to be able to do the quotes. Chris, I've deleted 2 modules from the module builder because I no longer need them. However, they are still showing in my left-hand menu. Is there anything I need to do to remove them from the left-hand menu? Yes. Okay, so this is kind of something that we don't recommend that you do, because I don't particularly want you to delete anything that you shouldn't. I'm going to assume, rightly or wrongly, Chris, that you've purchased an additional or multiple additional modules on top of the one that came with the software. Please don't delete the one that came with the software. In order to delete them out of your left-hand menu bar, you go to Menu Management and you click on Delete. So I'm going to delete one of my test ones because I know there's nothing connected to that. Are you sure you wish to delete this? Doing so is permanent. And it's gone. And then you reload the menu. So test 1 has now gone. If you are in any doubt about that, about doing that, please don't do it yourself. Just send it across to us. I'll need your login details to the software, and I can do it for you, because I can check first of all with the developers that you're deleting the right module, if you like, and that you're not deleting something that's connected to your monthly subscription. Because a lot of people change the name of that My First module and then they forget what they've changed it to. That's why I always put DND at the end, or recommend that. They forget what they changed the first module to, and sometimes they end up deleting that module. And as I said, it makes it very difficult for the developers to put it back and connect it to the subscription again. So if in doubt, let me know and I can sort it out for you. Sharon, suppose there is a mistake in the module. Can we fix it? If so, how? It depends what kind of mistake, Sharon. I'm just thinking about, okay, let me show you something. Let me see if I can find what it is I need to find. So please kind of just talk amongst yourselves for a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can find something that I did yesterday for a customer. And I'm not sure how I would do that. Okay, I'm going to show you a different way. I was going to show you something on the screen whereby when people have problems, they usually send me an email and say, I've got a problem, Sarah, my template, my module isn't coming up with a price. It's just got this whirring circle. Okay, and who did I email the other day? I'm just checking my emails because I know I sent something to somebody the other day, and I don't think she'll mind if I share with you what I sent her, but I do need to find it first. So there we go. Here we go. Okay, so I've now got what I need. I'm going to close my emails down and I'm going to show on screen. There we go. Just opening up. Bear with me, please. Sorry. Okay, PDF. So on the screen, very, very shortly, you should now see this item. Okay. When people send me emails that say, my template doesn't work, Sarah, what do I do? How do I fix it? It's not giving me a price, blah, blah, blah. When you do a quote, so you go into the module and you answer all the questions. You remember earlier I mentioned a button in the template that was called internal report. And when you click on that internal report button, it opens up a separate tab in your browser and it shows you all the things that are in your template. Well, in the customer area, in the quote area, when you've done a quote for a customer, so you've answered all the questions and you've clicked on your fixed price and it's come up with your 3 separate prices, there is an internal report button there. And that works in exactly the same way as the internal report button in the template. The internal report is this document that is now on screen. It's a PDF of your questions and the way that they were answered. And what I do is I print this document out. As you can see, I've handwritten on it. So I print it out, have it in front of me, I get my pen, and I go through every single question and write down what that question does. So I have the other internal report open that shows the template settings and the numbers in the lists and everything. And I write down exactly what that report does, what this does, what every item does. And then I get my calculator and I add everything up. So on here, you can see the very first item is, on average, how many invoices do you send out a month? Now, the answer to this particular question was 3,600. So I chose 121 to 230, and the answer behind the scenes was 3,600. That's the value that starts the calculation process. The next question, which is what is the business industry, I chose the construction trades company non-union. I don't know what that is, but I chose that. And that answer multiplies by 1.3. So you can see 3,600 multiplied by 1.3 gives me 4,680. So this is how I work out what's going wrong in your account. The next question, what bookkeeping product are we using? Adds 20% on because I chose Wave accounting systems. So 4,680 plus 20% is 5,616. And the lady said she was getting an issue in that it wasn't calculating the price that she thought it should be calculating. So she had in her mind an idea of what it should be doing. And the reason that it wasn't calculating is because she got this one here. Do you have multiple locations? It was a yes or no question, and it was a multiplier question. And the yes answer multiplied by 1.15, but the no answer multiplied by 0. Now, as you all know, because you're all accountants and bookkeepers, you can't multiply by 0 and come up with an answer. So 5,616 multiplied by 0 is 0. So that took the price back down to 0. And then we had to start all over again. So are you registered for HST? Adds 0%. So 0 plus 0% is 0. If yes, what is your filing frequency? The answer I chose was monthly, and the value in the background was 1,200. So now we add 1,200. So now we've got 0 plus 1,200 is 1,200. And that is how you can work out if there is a mistake in the template. And then once you know where that mistake is, you can then go into the template, you can find that question, that do you have multiple locations, and you can change it so that if it's if you want it to multiply, it must be a number 1 in that no box. It can't multiply by 0. So if you don't want the price to change, you put times 1. Okay. David Colts, that is, how do you approach making changes to a template? Are there certain steps or best practices you like to follow in order to be sure the formulas are working correctly? What do you suggest is the best way to test your calculations to make sure your formulas are correct? Okay, I'm going to go back into the software. And I'm going to go back into the template. And I suppose in a lot of respects, David, I've just answered that question for you. If I open up the template, so this is bookkeeping, I'll put another template in there for the next session, and we'll look at something completely different. So if I look at this, as I've mentioned before, the calculations is worked out in the order that the questions are added, are added into the template. So it's the order of the questions is the order of the calculation process. Now you can go into the formula builder, but we highly recommend that you don't, because that gets very, very complicated if you start and switch that on and start moving things around and changing brackets and all that kind of thing. So if you are an absolute whiz with Excel spreadsheets and formulas, then do by all means have a go. You know, I don't think you can break it, and we can always reset the default calculation for you. But the button, the customize calculation button over here on the right hand side, should always be switched off. That means that whenever you add in a new question, your questions get added to the bottom of each of your sections that you're adding them to, but you can then drag them to wherever you want them to be in the template, and the formula will adjust accordingly. Okay. So, and then what I suppose you need to do in order to see whether your formula is working is do what I've just showed you how to do. Oh, sorry, I'm not on the right screen, Safari. So here we go, I'm back here. Yeah, so the formula builder here, the customize calculation button on the right hand side should always be switched off. And then that means that whenever you make any changes to the sections, if you add a question to the section, the question gets added to the bottom of the section that you've added it to, and then you can use the drag and drop facility to move it to wherever you want to within the template. And the formula will automatically adjust to put in that question in the formula, in the part of the formula that it needs to be, given that you might have moved it from the last question to the second question or something along those lines. So the formula automatically adjusts. The best way to test it would be to do what I have just suggested, which is click on the internal report for this here, this template, and open up all of these items here, and do a test quote, and then click on the internal report button in the quote and have them in separate tabs. Print one out if you choose to, like I just did and I showed you on the screen. I handwrite everything down so that I know what it does, and I manually work it out, because that's just me, the way that I'm not very good with maths and things like that. So if I can visually see things written down, then I can work things out much better. And I can use my calculator as well. So that is probably the best way that I would do the testing. So I've just seen at the bottom, yes, I saw your answers on the best practices in testing here. Okay, Chris. Okay, Chris, you said, don't worry, I found that I need to go to menu management to delete the items from the menu. Perfect. David Fine says, do you have a template for providing virtual CFO services? No, we don't, unfortunately, David. It's not something that we in the UK, Mark's not actually got around to creating one for the UK people, and therefore there won't be one for the US or Canadian people either. So I am sorry about that. But, you know, if you wanted to, you could kind of create your own and send it across to us, and we can comment on it, and so on and so forth. And, you know, if you're prepared to share, that'd be great, because the community would love to be able to share. And that's what we're trying to do as well with the community who are using the software. We have a guy who is on Mark's mentoring program. He's really switched on accountant in the UK, and he's working with a lot of his clients. He's setting the software up for his clients to use as well. And he has been getting some fantastic results with a certain template. So we asked him if he would share his template with us so that we could share it with the wider community, because he's obviously getting great results from using this particular template. Now, you do obviously, when you're in the UK, you have to take into account the fact that he might be based, I think he's based in Hampshire, which is down on the south coast of England. So if you're based up in Scotland, then it might not work quite so well for you because of the environment that you're in. But, you know, he's getting great results with it. So at least you can have a look, see what things he's doing, what questions he's asking, and that. So if you want to create one that you think might be appropriate for virtual CFO services, that would be fantastic. And as I say, we can comment on it, or we can share it if you're happy to do that. Michelle, Mark mentioned Tuesday that there is a way to increase the pricing for specific industries or tasks that are required. Can you explain how to do this? I'm not sure what he said and what you mean by that. Can you expand a little bit so that I can perhaps, it might not be something I answer today, because I would need to ask Mark, well, what did you say, and so on. And I might get him to do a video and stick it into the Cloud Pricing Facebook group for that particular question. So if you could expand a little bit, Rochelle, that would be great. I can then ask him the right words. Gabriella, can I use other currencies to charge my clients? I'm in Canada. Yes, of course. You can choose the currency in the customization section. So we go into global settings, and down here we've got a button that says customizations. So in this is where you can change all of the software to make it look like your own. You can change the logo, so you don't need to have our logo there, Cloud Pricing. You can put your logo there. Our corporate colours are that kind of dark grey, turquoise blue, salmon pink colour. So you can change all of those colours to whatever your corporate colours are. And I've seen some really, really great colour schemes. People have really gone to town on changing this and customising it so it looks like it's your software. It's not ours, it's yours. So here you can choose the currency. So that's currently pounds. I can choose to change that to dollars and quote in dollars, or any other currency that I feel is appropriate. Or I can just leave it blank. If I don't want it to have a specific currency, I can just leave it blank. MJ, if we created a second module versus buying one, is there an additional month's charge? If we created a second module versus buying one, is there an additional monthly charge? There isn't. If you want to have a second module, you have to buy one. You can import, I believe, 3 templates, up to 3 templates, but you will only have one module. So if you import 3 templates, let's say you import bookkeeping, payroll and tax, so you've got these 3 templates and you get them to, you edit them, you put your own stamp on those templates, and then you want to quote for your client, you want to attach the bookkeeping one to the My First module, you can do that. But if you then want to have another module so that you can quote for payroll, and you want to be able to attach your payroll template, you have to buy another module in order to do that. It's 1 template to 1 module. So you will need to buy another one there, MJ. And I think you're based in the US, so it's $3.99. There are only 2 currencies. I know that somebody's asked about currencies. There are only 2 currencies to buy the software in. There's GBP for the UK people because there's VAT involved, VAT, sales tax, and there's US dollars, and those are the 2 currencies. Chris, when I started, I went and added lots of modules. I have now decided that 2 is enough. If you start with 5 modules, then want to reduce them, do you need to keep paying for 5, or will the number be reduced, and how does the pricing work for this? So Chris, if you purchase additional modules, you are charged for those additional modules every month, each module every month. But as soon as you cancel the modules that you don't need, that charge stops. So as long as you cancel the correct modules, I reiterate, I'm very paranoid about people deleting the one attached to the monthly subscription. So I reiterate, as long as you do not delete the one that is attached to your monthly subscription, you need to keep that one. You can delete all of the other modules, and you will then stop paying for those modules. Okay. David, yes, you answered. Mark, yeah, thank you. So Paula, given your comment, the template can be adjusted for the Caribbean. Yep, you can edit the template to your heart's content and write in there how you would ask things for wherever you are based in the world. So you would use the language, the terminology, you just change everything that's in the template so that it reflects where you are in the world, and you also change those numbers as well. Carol. Hello, Carol. I have had to amend it to suit me as I'm in Canada and in British Columbia, so I have GST and PST sales tax. Okay, that's challenging. But what you might think about, or what you might consider, is having 2 separate templates for the same service, one that applies PST and one that applies GST. Or perhaps, I mean, I'm not sure, do you need to specify the amount of GST or PST? Could you not just put sales tax? Or do you actually have to specify GST and PST? And do you have to specify the amount for each of those items? So for us in the UK, our sales tax is called VAT, value added tax, yeah, VAT. And the rate of VAT is 20%. Now, we can just put plus VAT, and every single person in the UK would know that it was 20% because it's just a standard amount. But do you have standard amounts for your GST and your PST? Is it 5% for one and 10% for another, or are they identical? And if they are identical, do you need to differentiate between GST and PST? Just asking the question. Sarah, so Rochelle says, based on my question about adding the section, would it be better to create a new template with the additional questions so you can change based on circumstances? For example, advanced cleanup services as the template with the additional section. No, I don't think it would. you don't want to start creating loads and loads of different templates unless you need to. And if you've already got a cleanup template, why could you not just ask the questions in a section, an additional section that is advanced cleanup services questions? And all you would need to do is create the section, and the first question in that section could be something along the lines of, do you need to answer these questions? However you set it up, I don't know. But there might be, let's say you might have 4 questions that you need to ask for advanced cleanup, because they might want specific things doing. And if the first question is, do you want us to do the advanced cleanup, and that's no, then as long as all the other answers are defaulting to no, you don't need to ask those questions. But if the customer says, yes, I do want you to do the advanced cleanup, then all of the other questions can be asked, and then a price can be added for advanced cleanup. So I wouldn't do a separate template just for a certain section of a specific service. I would make sure that your cleanup service has all the questions that you need it to have in there. Carol says, when you import a CPT file, can you make a clone of it so you don't change the original but keep it without needing to purchase a separate module? No, Carol, you can't, unfortunately. As I mentioned earlier, it's one template to one module. And if you want to import a template, let's say you've imported a template and you want to clone it, you can do that, but you would need a new module in order. You can have 3 templates in your account. So you can import your bookkeeping template and you can clone it, and that would be 2 templates, and you can then import your payroll template. But if you want to clone your payroll template, you would need to purchase an additional module in order to be able to do so. Okay. David, yeah, you saw about best practice. Sharon, regarding Mark's comment about adjusting for the type of business, I think Mark was talking about adjusting the multiplier for, say, contractors from a 1 to a 1.5 for a more complicated industry. Yeah, that's the kind of thing you can do. So if you've got if you've got a list around types of businesses, and you've got manufacturing, you've got contractors, you've got bars, cafes and restaurants, then yes, you can change all of those items and have much higher multipliers. So if the multiplier currently in a list that you've got in your template for contractors is 1.2, and you know that it's much more complicated than that, then you can change that 1.2 to 1.7. You can change everything to whatever it is you want it to. I will check with Mark about that particular question to make sure that I've answered it, and if I feel that it needs further indulgence, I will get him to do a Loom video and put that into the Facebook group. Rochelle, pricing for specific industries or tasks on the question that asks what industry it is when he mentioned this. Okay, like I say, I will ask him to be a kind of to reiterate whatever it was he said in the training the other day, and we'll do a Loom video and post it there. Okay, Paula, thank you. David Peters says, my search for taxes charged on bookkeeping, I found that as a bookkeeper, not accountant, we don't have to charge PST in British Columbia, only GST. You can do a Google search to confirm. That's really useful. Thank you very much for that information, David. That's fantastic. So just wanted to go back very finally, we're 4 minutes over the allotted finish time, so I wanted to just go back to those 2 one-to-one calls I had this morning with a couple of people. I will now I've not disappeared. So what I did was I just wanted to share with you the reasons why, and I know this is quite a big thing for a lot of people, and it's a question we often do get asked, and I am sort of looking at my notes here that I made. The 2 people I had a conversation with this morning said, why can't we have one module and put all of our services in that one module, instead of having individual modules for individual services? And it's a great question, and we do get asked this question all the time. And my answer, we have 4 reasons. We will never prescribe to you what you should do. If you want to have one module and you want to have all of your different services in that module, then you can do so, because that is your prerogative. Here are the reasons why we feel that individual modules for individual services are more appropriate. So the first reason is that if you have individual modules for individual services and you quote for all the services as separate services, you will then get the maximum amount for each of those particular services, the maximum amount, instead of bundling things in and ending up getting a reduced amount. Let's say you bundle payroll into your bookkeeping module, you would get a reduced amount for payroll. So separate modules give you a better price for individual services. The second reason is you wouldn't want to have a template that would have ongoing work with one-off projects. So let's say, for example, you have a bookkeeping template and you have some cleanup work that you need to do. Bookkeeping is an ongoing project. You would take regular ongoing monthly payments for your bookkeeping work, for the bookkeeping work. But cleanup work is a one-off project. Hopefully you would quote for cleanup work, you would do it once, end of story, you would never have to do it again. Want to do the cleanup work and incorporate that fee into the bookkeeping, and therefore have cleanup work going in an ongoing monthly payment. And that's why you would keep those 2 separate. So that's why you don't have ongoing work with one-off projects. The next one is, if you have bookkeeping and payroll in the same module, what you're doing there is you're pricing 2 separate services based on 2 separate scope areas. So for bookkeeping, the scope of the job is based around how many transactions they have, how many bank accounts they have, how many purchase or sales invoices they have. Whereas the payroll isn't based on any of those things, it's based on the number of employees you have. So what you're doing is you're basing 2 services in 2 separate scope areas, and that's not something that you should really be doing. And also, again, if you had payroll, and with your bookkeeping, and let's say the payroll question, the very last question in the payroll section, let's say that was a multiplier question. It doesn't just multiply what the question before. So, you know, if there's a value in the question before of like, let's say of $5, and then you want to multiply that question, that $5, by something else, it doesn't multiply that one question. If it's the last question in the entire template, it multiplies the entire template, all the questions. So if you've got bookkeeping questions first, then you've got payroll, and your last payroll question is a multiplier, it will multiply everything. And that's not something that you want to do. Like, essentially, you would want to do the payroll quote in isolation from the bookkeeping. So hopefully those sort of reasons are why we recommend that you have individual modules or templates for your individual services, and you price everything separately. But it's your prerogative at the end of the day. You can do whatever you like with the software, and if you want to incorporate multiple services into one account, into one template, then that's perfectly acceptable as well. You can do whatever you want. So I just wanted to sort of clear that up. I wanted to give you our reasons and why we would suggest that you do that. I know it seems that the meeting would be an incredibly long meeting if you had to go through bookkeeping and payroll and annual financial statements and personal tax, But you don't have to do everything in one meeting. What you could also do is you could say, right, well, we're here to quote you for the bookkeeping today, but it's possible that, you know, you might want to talk to us about doing your tax returns or setting up your payroll or whatever. And we can do that, and we can do that in today's meeting if you've got the time. But if not, what we can do is quote you for the bookkeeping, and let's get that up and running. And we'll pop back and see you in a couple of weeks when we've got everything organised with the bookkeeping, and we can now then move on to the other services that you want. So there's always a way of getting around it. You don't have to do everything in that first meeting with the client. You can have subsequent meetings with them, but please, it's entirely up to you. I'm really, really pleased that all of you have stayed right to the very end. I'm just checking my questions. There's no more questions. So I'm going to end this webinar today. We are now that we have somebody else working for us, we are now going to be doing these webinars on a weekly basis. Not all of them will be appropriate for US audiences. We will be running some of them at 9:30 in the morning UK time. So UK people, you'll be fine, whichever one you come to, 9:30 in the morning or 3:30 in the afternoon. It's 5:10 in the afternoon here now. So the afternoon ones are most beneficial to our US audience and Canadian audience, but we will be running some at 9:30 in the morning UK time, which will be more convenient for our Australian and New Zealand audience. So if you see one that's scheduled for 9:30 in the morning UK time, that won't be appropriate for you unless you want to get up in the middle of the night and come and join us, which I think that might be a little bit over the top for you, and I do recommend you get some sleep. So, you know, we are going to run them on a weekly basis. I believe the next one at this time is in 2 weeks' time. Our next one next week on Thursday the 23rd is at 9:30 in the morning, so that's for our Australian audience. The following week, Thursday the 30th, that will be a 3:30 one again, and that is for this audience again. So we will send you out an email and notify you when that happens. Thank you so much for being with me today, and I hope that I've answered all of your questions. And if you do have any others, as I say, click on the link in the chat box for the Facebook group and post them in there, and let us know what other things you need to know. It's great to see you all. See you again next time. Bye-bye for now.